Good morning, students. So today we are going to study about the economic activities. We are studying human geography in class 12 and we have studied about the basic of human geography, the population distribution, how people are spatially distributed over the land surface, about the age structure, gender ratio. This we have already done in the previous chapters, and this is related to the most important aspect of human living, that how people earn their living, that is economic activity. So the first one, economic activities, we divide into different types like primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary activities, and we begin with primary activities. So primary activities are those activities where we are engaged with nature. So nature has a very important role to play in primary activities. So we are directly dependent on environment, where environment is providing us land, water, vegetation, the building material for settlements, minerals for other economic activities. So most important primary activities are agriculture, hunting, gathering, animal rearing, then forestry, fishing, mining and quarrying. So in primary activities, basically people are engaged with nature, and they are known as red collar workers because they work with environment in outdoors. So we categorize primary activities into most basic hunting, gathering, and then we move towards agriculture where people are settled, and then mining is also a very important part, but it is confined to only some areas where minerals and ores are available. So the first type of activity is hunting and gathering. The earliest human being dependent on their immediate environment for their sustenance, and they were mainly dependent on the animals which they hunted and the plants which they were eating, and they were gathering from the forest around. So primitive societies dependent on wild animals, and they domesticated few animals for various purposes. The people located in very cold and extremely hot climates, still in today's world they are survived on hunting because other activities are not developed. The people in coastal regions still catch fish through fishing, has experienced modernization. So in some areas, especially where hot and cold currents meet, these areas have developed as great fish banks. Otherwise, that fishing is still a primary activity in most of the coastal areas. Many species now have become extinct or endangered due to illegal hunting or poaching. That's why hunting is banned in most of the countries. The early hunter used primitive tools made of stones, twigs, arrows, so the number of animals killed was limited. But now, because of the advanced technology, this hunting has become very dangerous and causing many species to become extinct or endangered. Gathering and hunting are the oldest economic activity now. So before agriculture, people were used to gather or hunt animals for their survival purpose. Gathering is still practiced in some regions, especially in harsh climatic conditions. So it mainly involves primitive societies, mainly tribals. So they use animals for their different needs to satisfy, like food, shelter and clothing. This type of activity requires a small amount of capital investment, or almost no capital investment is required, and operates at very low level of technology. So it's only basic tools are required for hunting and gathering. The yield per person is very low and little or no surplus is produced. So it is basically a sustainable activity or subsistence activity. So gathering is mainly practiced in the areas of high latitude zones like northern Canada, northern Eurasia and southern Chile. So these are the areas of taiga and tundra climate. Then low latitude zones such as Amazon Basin, tropical Africa, northern fringe of Australia and interior part of Southeast Asia. So this entire area is basically equatorial rainforest. In modern times, some gathering is market oriented and has become commercial. So because of the demand of different herbs and leaves, twigs and barks, because of their medicinal properties, people want to purchase, and that's why they have some market demand, and only to some extent they have become commercial. So gatherers collect valuable products from forest like leaves, barks, medicinal plants, and then they sell in the market. They use various parts of plant like bark, furcanine, tannin extract, cork. So these are different material which are in great demand. These supply material for beverages, drugs, cosmetics, fiber, thatch and fabrics. Nuts for food, so various types of nuts are gathered. Oils and tree trunk yield rubber, balata, gums and raisins. Gathering has little chance of becoming important at the global level. So basically, this activity is confined to a very limited area, only of harsh climate where other type of activities are not developed. Only in some areas people are still practicing because of high demand and because they are still living very close to their nature. And these products face good competition in international market because of synthetic product of better quality and lower prices. So they have replaced many items supplied by gatherers in tropical forest. So this was the first economic activity known to man and still practiced in some area. Now the next one is pastoralism. At some stage in history, with the realization that hunting is an unsustainable activity, human beings might have thought of domestication of animals. And still at the commercial level in some areas this activity is very important. People living in different climatic conditions selected and domesticated animals found in those regions. So that's why different animals are domesticated in different areas, like cattle in India in tropical areas, sheep and goats in desert areas, then reindeers in cold climate. So it depends on the geographical factors and now technological development. Animal rearing has practiced either as subsistence or at the commercial level. So it is practiced in both ways. Subsistence level in the hilly areas or in the less developed areas, and at the commercial level in developed countries. So we can divide pastoralism into two parts, nomadic herding and commercial livestock rearing. Nomadic herding or pastoral nomadism is primitive subsistence activity. So this is mainly for their own consumption, for their sustenance of life, in which the herders rely on animals for food, clothing, shelter, tools and transport. So their entire life revolves around their herds or cattle. They move from one place to another with their livestock, depending on the amount and quality of pastures and water. Each nomadic community occupies a well-identified territory as a matter of tradition. So traditionally, most of the tribal areas, these communities, they own some area where they used to roam in different seasons according to availability of pastures and water. But now this has become very restricted because of the political and administrative boundaries which have set up now. So the areas where we see this activity as a prominent activity is mainly the North Africa, the Atlantic shore of North Africa from Arabian Peninsula to Mongolia and central China. So this entire area is very arid area. The second region is tundra region of Eurasia, again very cold region. Then the southern hemisphere, Southwest Africa and island of Madagascar. Southwest Africa is again a very arid area and Madagascar is remote area. So movement in search of pastures undertake very over vast horizontal distances or vertical from one elevation to another in the mountainous regions. According to the temperature change, according to seasonal change, availability of water, rainfall and the growth of grass and pastures, they move from one place to other place. And the seasonal movement in mountainous areas is known as transhumance. Like in Himalayas, Gujars, Bakarwal, Gaddi, Bhotia, they migrate from plain to mountains in summers and from mountains to plains in winters. In tundra region, the nomadic herders move from south to north in summers and north to south in winters. The number of pastoral nomads has been decreasing and the areas operated by them shrinking, because most of the areas now have permanent settlements and they have political boundaries. So mainly because of political boundaries and new settlement plans, now government is restricted these their traditional areas. Now the next part of nomadism is commercial livestock rearing. Commercial livestock regions are more extensive, and this activity is more organized and capital intensive. This is known as livestock ranching and associated with Western culture and is practiced on permanent ranches. These ranches cover large areas and divided into a number of parcels which are fenced to regulate the grazing. Where the grass of one parcel is grazed, animals are moved to another parcel. So these are a specialized area where all the facilities for animal rearing are there, especially veterinary doctors and all the medical facilities for their proper growth and care is taken so that they can provide all the requirements for their commercial purpose. The number of animals in a pasture is kept according to the carrying capacity of the pasture. So this is a specialized activity in which only one type of animal is reared. Most important animals are sheep, cattle, goats and horses. Again, it depends on the temperature conditions and the native animals of that area. Products such as meat, wool, hides and skin are processed and packed scientifically and exported to different world markets. So most of the European countries and northeastern part of USA, then Australia, Argentina, they are doing very well in commercial livestock rearing. So here you can see the important areas of nomadic herding in the world map and how commercial livestock rearing is being practiced. So here emphasis is laid on breeding, genetic improvement of animals, disease control and healthcare so that they can provide optimum output. Then most important countries are New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, Uruguay and USA. Now the next primary activity, which is the core, the most important primary activity, is agriculture. Agriculture is most widespread over the world and it's practiced in almost all the countries. So it is practiced under multiple combination of physical and socio-economic conditions, because physical conditions are different. Type of terrain, type of climatic conditions are different. Socio-economic conditions, people's choice, their preference of food. So agriculture depends on all these basic conditions which give rise to different types of agricultural system. So we can divide agriculture on different types according to the methods of farming which are used, different type of crops which are grown and livestock along with agriculture. So we will discuss the important agricultural systems over here. First one is the most basic type of agriculture, which is known as subsistence agriculture, where agriculture is done for their own consumption. Farmers grow crops for their own consumption, not for market. So here in this type of agriculture, farming areas consume all or nearly of all the products locally grown. It can be grouped into categories: primitive subsistence agriculture and intensive subsistence agriculture. So first is primitive subsistence agriculture, which is also known as shifting cultivation and is mainly practiced by tribals in the tropical areas, mainly in Africa, South and Central America and Southeast Asia. Now here you can see in the world map that these are the important areas of world where subsistence agriculture is in practice. So in shifting agriculture, the process is that the vegetation is cleared by fire and add to fertility to the soil. So tribals cut the entire forest of that area, all the trees, and then they use that parcel of land for agriculture. This is known as slash and burn agriculture. The cultivated patches are generally very small and cultivation is done with most primitive tools like sticks and hooves. After some time, maybe 3 years or 4 years, it depends on the fertility of soil. The soil loses its fertility and farmers shift to another part and clear other patch of forest for cultivation. So the leftover patch, that area which was cultivated earlier, that can be again used, or naturally the successive vegetation grows in that land. The farmer may return to the earlier patch after some time. One of the major problems of shifting cultivation is that the cycle of June becomes less and less due to loss of fertility in different parcels, because land is limited, and when people continuously practice this type of agriculture, it becomes harmful for environment and the fertility of soil. So, in different tropical areas, it is known as by different names, like Juming in northeastern states of India, Milpa in Central America and Mexico, Ladang in Indonesia and Malaysia. Now, in the subsistence agriculture, the next type of agriculture is intensive subsistence agriculture, which is the advanced form of subsistence agriculture, we can say, because it is commercial type of agriculture. So this is mainly found in or practiced in densely populated regions of monsoon Asia. So here you can see in the world map that areas of intensive subsistence farming. So entire Southeast Asia or monsoon Asia, some part of Indonesia is under this type of cultivation, and this type of cultivation is divided into two types. One is dominated by rice and the other is dominated by other crops, mainly wheat and millet. So first one is the intensive subsistence agriculture dominated by wet paddy cultivation. So paddy is known as rice in agriculture. This type of agriculture is characterized by dominance of rice crop. So mainly in Southeast Asia, this is practiced. Land holdings are very small due to high density of population. Okay.